Oh, hi! I'm just preparing a pretend meal for me and my friends. We're gonna celebrate Maundy Thursday together. Do you know what Maundy Thursday is? Well, Maundy Thursday is the day when we remember Jesus' last Passover with his disciples, which is kind of like a holiday to celebrate another holiday. Anyway, Jesus was celebrating Passover, and Passover is the Jewish holiday where people remember how God liberated the ancient Hebrew people from slavery in Egypt. It's the whole story of Moses and the burning bush and the crossing of the Red Sea, all that. So Jesus was not from Jerusalem, but he was in Jerusalem with a whole bunch of other people for Passover. It's kind of like the familiarity and warm fuzziness of going to grandma's for a holiday with all of the excitement and the crowds of Disney World and the religious importance of like Christmas Eve all rolled into one. So, because he wasn't in his hometown, Jesus needed somewhere to spend the evening to celebrate Passover. And the other three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, tell us that Jesus got his disciples to go find a room and rent a room for the night and prepare all the food. And then John tells us this other exciting detail about how when they all got there, they're eating, they're sitting down to eat, and Jesus, out of nowhere, just gets up and ties a towel around his waist, and he goes and he washes his disciples' feet. Which even the disciples in the text think is kind of weird. And we're going to get to why in a little bit, but I want you to think about hosting for a second. It's been a little while since we've been able to host people, but do you remember when you used to have people over, maybe you would meet them at the door, and then you might ask to take their coat and hang it up, and you might tell them, hey, it's okay to take your shoes off and leave them by the door, make yourself comfortable, that sort of thing. Well, Jesus is kind of hosting his disciples here. And we're going to talk a little bit about why maybe that was super significant. But in order to talk about why it's significant, we're going to need to go on a walk. You ready? Okay, here we go. Ow, that hurt. Man, why did I think it was going to be a good idea to wear flip-flops on the trail? Huh. You know, I'm getting super dirty, and I don't know if you saw me trip, but I got a stick up under my sandal, and it hurt. You know, these probably weren't the best shoes I could have worn. Let me see if I can change that. That's better. Now I've got my hiking shoes on, and I'm ready to go. You know, these days, if we know that we're going to be hiking on a dirt trail like this, or if we know that we're going to be walking a lot to get from point A to point B, we wear a certain type of shoe. We wear a shoe that's going to be comfortable and that's going to protect our feet from the mud or the sharp stones or the poison ivy or whatever else we might find along our path. And then we also wear socks as an extra layer to protect our shoes from the sweat of our feet. So, all in all, our shoes are probably pretty clean, and our feet are definitely a lot cleaner than Jesus' feet and the feet of his disciples back in the day. Well, thanks for going on a walk with me. I'm back home now, and I'm gonna take my shoes off here at the door. All right. So, as you can see, it was kind of a big deal that Jesus washed his disciples' feet because they were really dirty, just because that's how things were. And so that's why Jesus' disciples reacted so strongly against him washing their feet, because he's their teacher, he's their mentor, he's someone they look up to, and here he's doing this really gross job of washing their feet, which isn't really his job. He's not even really hosting. They're renting a place, other people prepared the meal, and for all of these reasons, it didn't make much sense in their culture, in their time, for Jesus to get down and wash his disciples' feet. But what Jesus is saying is, I love you, and you're important to me, and you're worth taking care of. And just because I'm an important person in your eyes doesn't mean that I am more important than you are. And if I, an important person in your eyes, am doing this for you, then you need to be doing that for other people too. Huh. Well, that feels good to get my shoes off and sit a little bit. I wanted to come into the living room here where I set up a display more like how Jesus and his disciples would have celebrated Passover. They wouldn't have sat around tables and chairs. They would have sat at a low table on pillows like this and kind of reclined while eating their unleavened bread, which is flat bread, kind of like a tortilla, but it's a little harder in their case. And imagine Jesus and his disciples sitting around the table kind of like this, having normal conversation just like you would at any holiday, different people talking across the table, some laughter, and out of this Jesus just gets up, puts a towel around his waist, and he starts washing his disciples' feet. It's as surprising as it would be today if at your family gathering, where everybody's having conversation and laughing across the table, and your grandma were to get up and put on an apron and go over to you, take off your socks and shoes and start washing your feet. That would be pretty surprising. And it's partly because this is so surprising, and it's partly because we want to remember that we are not more important than anyone else, and that our God calls us to love and service. It's because of that that we, as James Street Mennonite Church, and a lot of other Mennonite churches, and a lot of other churches around the world, remember that story by washing each other's feet on Maundy Thursday. So, if you want to do this ritual at home with your family, you could grab a bucket and fill it partway with water, and then you could take turns washing each other's feet. But for those of you who might be living at home alone as adults, it's not quite the same thing if you're washing your own feet, and it doesn't really mean the same thing. Even the symbolism doesn't mean the same thing. And even for those of us who live in families and can do the ritual of washing each other's feet, there's still an element of realness that we're missing, because our feet aren't all that dirty these days. So, I suppose there are people around the world that still need to walk to get where they need to go, and their feet might be pretty dirty. And there are people here in the United States, too, who maybe don't have the money to buy a car, so they're doing a lot of walking. And there are people that really take the need to care for our planet seriously, and so they either don't own a car or don't drive a car much, and they walk or bike or take public transportation to get where they need to go. So for all those people, their feet might still be pretty dirty, and it might be both symbolic and actually helpful if we were to wash their feet. It would mean something much deeper than just us washing each other's feet to remember Jesus washing his disciples' feet. But for most of us, since our feet are pretty clean, and since the people we know probably have pretty clean feet, what can we do to serve other people? What can we do to show our love and our desire to serve? What would be a meaningful act that we could do? I'm not going to answer that for you. I'm going to let you talk about that with your family, or if you're an adult living at home, maybe you want to journal about it, or if you're a kid, maybe you want to journal about it. Just think of some ways that we could make this symbolic act a real act as well in our lives, so that we are remembering in our lives, in our daily practice of our Christian faith, what are things that we can do to show that we know that we are not the most important thing about this world, that other people are just as important as we are, and that everyone is equally important before God, and that God really wants us to take care of the people that maybe are less powerful than we are, or that have less than we are, that they're not worth any less in the eyes of God. It's great to have traditions, and it is great to celebrate things that happened in the past. And we also need to think about how we can make these old traditions and these old stories have meaning for us today. So I hope that wherever you are, as you're celebrating Maundy Thursday today, that you can remember just how important you are to God, because Jesus, who is God in human form, came to wash his disciples' feet, and that's us by extension, and also that he calls us as his disciples to wash the feet of others, to love and serve others, and show them that they are no less important than we are, that they are just as important to God, and to remind us that we are no more important than anybody else. Bless you. I hope that you can celebrate today by eating together, or by reflecting on this special meal that Jesus had with his family.